Hi everybody, it's Melanie with Prepared Household, and today I'm going to start working on my grandmother's apple stack cake. This is a secret recipe, secret family recipe that I barely was able to pry out of a relative, so I'm sharing it with YouTube. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is use dried apples, and my grandmother dried apples herself. She'd lay them out on a sheet in the yard or in a vehicle and dried her own apples. But you need to use dried apples to get the best flavor. And this is a number 10 can of dried apples that I canned myself. I got the apples bulk from the LDS Home Storage Center, and I canned them. So that's why they're so tightly packed in there. And we don't normally eat a whole lot of these. We save them to make the stack cakes at Christmas, or they're in there in storage because this is a good, apple is a really good source of vitamins and sugar. So those are in my storage. Anyway, I'm going to dump them out. I'm going to use the entire can. I'm going to dump them out. I'm going to add some water to them. And I'm going to put them on the stove to cook. Now you would add your own, what you like, how you like your apples to taste. Probably put a little sugar, cinnamon, butter in as they cook. And I've added about a tablespoon of ground cinnamon. And now I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm going to stir this up. Let me turn the stove on. Go ahead and let it be warming up. I'm going to put about a half a cup of sugar in it for now. And I'm going to stir it up and let it simmer for a little while and taste it and see where we're at. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and work on the starting of the cake. Now, the recipe calls for a cup of molasses, a half cup of sugar. I've already measured that out. It also calls for a half cup of butter, so that's a stick of butter, and a half a cup of Crisco shortening. And I'm sure when my grandmother did this recipe that was probably lard. But here is the sticks, the Crisco sticks, and here is a half a cup. So we'll take all that and we'll place it in the pan and we'll stir it till it comes to a boil, and then we're going to set it off to cool, and then we'll add the dry ingredients from there. Now, in order to, because molasses is very sticky, I take a small amount of butter and I'm going to put it on the inside of the measuring cup so that all the gooey goodness of the molasses will release into the pan. Okay, I've got that buttered up pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. I'm going to put it on high to get it started. I'm going to put the butter in the pan and the Crisco stick. Release it from its prison. It's kind of difficult to do one-handed. Go ahead and put that in the skillet and let that melt a little bit before I add the half a cup of sugar. Let's see. Let me see if I can swing this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Here we go. So a half a cup is down at the bottom. Alright. Difficult to do already. We'll add that to the kettle. And it helps, the butter of course helps it to come out a little better. And let's go ahead and turn this down just a little bit. You can see everything mixing together really nicely. Take my wooden spoon. It's starting to melt a little bit better, so I'm going to go ahead and incorporate the sugar. A little bit at a time. There's your half a cup. Now I'll put the recipe below, but just to recap, I take a cup of molasses and a half a cup of sugar, half a cup of butter, half a cup of Crisco. And I think I only did a half cup of the molasses, so I'm going to have to add a little bit more molasses. And then we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to let it cool. So we'll get back with you when I get ready. Okay, I've adjusted the heat, turned it back on high so this would come up to a boil quicker, and as you can see, it's got a nice good boil to it. It's slowly spreading out, and looks like that's pretty good. Now we will turn the heat off. Get it to the edges. We'll go ahead and turn the heat off, and we'll remove it from heat. And after this cools, we'll add the dry ingredients. So, okay, our mixture has cooled quite a bit, and it's just, just barely warm. So I'm going to start mixing. And what we'll do here is, I've already measured out my ingredients. Here I have a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of ginger, and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're going to mix that with 4 cups of sifted plain or all-purpose flour. So I'm just going to pour this in here and give that a stir. Do some frothing again. Get all the stuff in there and just give it a quick stir. Incorporate it all through the flour mixture. Okay. Now I'm going to take a bowl and I'm going to slowly mix the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients in this bowl right here. And when I get it all mixed in together, the consistency you get. It's kind of really crumbly, but it's sticking together really well. And yes, there's a time when you decide you've got to get in there with your hands. So, to this, we're going to add 2 eggs, lightly beaten. I've already got that done. And then we're going to stir this together. And then we're going to put it into a greased bowl that I've already prepared. And I'll get back with you. I had to add a little bit more flour because the texture was just a little bit too gooey. But now, as you can see, it's got a nice texture to it. We're going to wrap some aluminum foil on this. We're going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. You can chill it for several hours or overnight. I'm going to chill it overnight and get started on baking it in the morning. So, we'll see you in the morning. I transferred the apples that I've cooked for a while on top of the stove into my crock pot. I've added about a cup and a half more sugar, about a tablespoon more of the cinnamon, and some more nutmeg. And I'm going to let this cook overnight while our cake layers chill out in the fridge. Okay, so here's my dough ball. It's been in the refrigerator all night. And what I'll do is I'll cut this into 8 equal pieces, and I'm going to roll them out and bake them in the oven. So, okay, I've cut them into 8 kind of equal pieces. I've worked on flouring, and at first I sprayed the pans with spray, and then I floured them. And so what I will do at this point, got the oven preheating at 350, and I'll take and make circles out of these and bake them in the oven for, I think it's 9 minutes. 10 minutes, but I think, well, last time I did it, 9 minutes worked better. So I'm going to bake them in the oven for 9 minutes. Of course, this is a different oven, so the times may vary, just whatever works for you. So I'm going to get started. So here it is, all smoothed out. And you better put some flour under it because it's going to be a little difficult to get up because it's extremely thin. So I'm going to get this in. The trick to getting them good and flat is, and keep them from sticking, is just keep flipping them over and pushing outward on the sides. You can fix these little ragged edges once you get them in the pan. So here's the first cookie out of the oven. I'm going to test it, and the top of it feels really, kind of soft but firm. So this one's good and done, and what I need to do is take it over and lay it out. Looks like a great big cookie, and this will get very hard and form an extremely hard little cookie that we can make our layers out of. And that's just the flour. So I've got 2 waiting. There's 2 in the oven. I've got 2 timers going. If I had one more timer, I would probably do a 3rd one in the oven. But this will keep everything going quickly and smoothly, and I can get this done, without wasting a whole lot of time baking. So while I'm waiting for my cakes in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and drain my apples. I need to drain a lot of the juice off of them so the cake won't be soggy. And then I'm going to put this in the freezer or refrigerator, depending on how much time I have, to chill for a while. I'm going to start assembling the cake. As you see, I've got my 8 pieces, and they are pretty solid. And I've got my chilled apples. So what you do is you place one of the cookies or layers on whatever you're going to put your cake on, and then you just spoon the chilled apples on top. Make a nice little thin layer, because that's the beauty of this cake. It is all composed of thin layers. So I'm going to work on this, and when I get done, I'll come back and show it to you. And don't worry if your cookies break or your layers break, because the apple filling will kind of glue it all together. Finished product, and usually I don't put apples on top, but my top layer broke, so I put some apples on top to cover it up. Kind of push it in the sides, and that's the old-fashioned apple stack cake.